Our movie begins with a crazy person who breaks down his house and doesn't leave a single part of it intact, and collects all his furniture on the hole in the basement of his house in order to prevent a certain person from leaving it, and then he goes to hide in the kitchen with his weapon, but after a period of time, it appears that he died through his weapon, and the topic is like suicide, and the house remains located in a rural place far from the city, and to what extent in general, so much so that the sound of the shot was not even heard by anyone. After a while, we go to Peter, and he is being treated with a doctor, because he and his wife may not succeed him, but it is unknown. Because the two of them are in good health, so they advise the doctor that he should take a vacation from his work and force him to travel for a long time and sit in a quiet place. And this may increase their attempt at caliphate, and Peter intends to return again to his country and buy a house there to spend his vacation there, and his wife, and turn it into a guest house, and his wife remains a children's teacher and takes care of him. When she returns home, she will have a few strong words with her husband, and they will go to sleep. And when Peter wakes up, he doesn't find his wife sleeping beside him, so he looks for her in the apartment, and she says that she could and sleep. So she stood on the TV, and at that time an old man appeared from behind the sofa, and she would not see him, and suddenly he could not breathe, as if someone was suffocating, and he was terrified because of the nightmare he dreamed of, and he ran to the hall to make sure that there was no one in his house, and he went back to sleep again, and he woke up and his wife was coming. They want to travel and move to the house they bought to spend their happy vacation. When they arrive, Myra will be upset that she will live in a large place by herself, and there is no one close to her because she is used to crowds and showers. And the neighbors, when they enter the house, show it that it is deserted, as if no one has entered it for a while, and when they enter the small room, they find a small cot in the room, and in the large room there are two beds separated from each other, which they can use, and when they go to the basement of the house, they find that the entire house is in one place, and they decide to reshape and distribute the brushes to the house. But after they rest from traveling, they keep drinking until they get drunk. Myra tells him that she is not sure whether she loves him or not, and they must succeed as they were planned. This is because children are deficient in love, relationships, and marriage as well, and today is the second day for them to buy the needs of the house from the store, and the owner of the shop asks them where they are going. When they tell him the address, he gets shocked as if he knows something about the history of the house, but not telling them, and they both go back to their house to clean it up and rearrange it, and Peter goes down to the basement to arrange all the luggage under it until he's empty at all, and he found that the luggage was placed on a very large flat rock. He tries to move the rock and finds it moving with ease, fabishal the rock, and the first thing that keeps her away from her place, her weight blooms again and falls to the ground from his hand, and he can't move her from her place because of her weight, which has increased many times over. All of a sudden, under the rock, there will be a deep hole in the ground, and Peter doesn't understand what's wrong with her, so he leaves her and goes out to sleep beside his wife. And when the night comes, something will come out of the gap, and you can open the basement door, and she keeps moving around the house until she reaches Myra, and she entered under her cover. Myra wakes up and tries. It's moving, but she will be confined to bed, until finally, you can do it, and she reassures that there is no one with him in the room and goes back to sleep again. As for the next day, Myra is awake, very tired, and her stomach is feeling, and she keeps crying that they spent all their money in this house and that they are left penniless. He fails to find someone to help him, so he goes back again to his wife, and she will be a little better than the morning, so he stays beside her and keeps caring about them, and they are able with time to understand that she is pregnant. In a place where he looks like a demon appears in front of him in the form of an old man who eats a baby fetus, and he rises. He is terrified of sleeping and finds that his wife is in pain from her pregnancy, as if she was giving birth. He quickly transfers his wife to the Arab to go to their nearest hospital. But it will be so far that the car breaks down on the way and they can't continue their way. Peter is forced to give birth to his wife himself, but he is shocked when he finds his wife, instead of getting pregnant, lays eggs. And he finds a huge egg in front of him, and he doesn't know how to act in it, especially since his son could be in it. He keeps trying to fix the Arabic until it moves, and return to their home, and his wife sleeps while she is incubating the egg. After the dream he had, he decides that he must move the rock that was hanging over the gap, and return it as it was to bridge the gap, and he succeeds in blocking it, as for the next day, Myra wakes up from sleep to the movement of the egg as if it was hatching. Myra stands up from the shock, and who you see and it happens in front of her. She calls Peter to see what is happening, and a really small baby comes out of the egg, and they are sure that this is their son, even though he came out of an egg, and Myra is very happy that she has become his mother and is taking her son away. She takes into account that Peter is afraid and terrified of his son because he was aware that the matter is not normal for him to happen, and he faints from the abundance of what she is in. Peter takes her immediately to the doctor who lives far from them, but he is the only one in the city who checks on the child and makes sure that he is in good condition. Peter reassures that his wife is in good health, and they find her getting up from the bed to get them. She also checks on her son and they take him back to their home. When they come back, Myra tells him that he is trying to love them because the responsibility on her is great. He tries to accept the strangeness of the matter. It is enough that they left behind after a while long, but Peter can't adapt to the issue and keeps trying to avoid dealing with his son. Myra decided to name her son Nicholas. As for protecting her son, she asks her husband to take care of him until she gets the towel and comes to him, but Peter keeps holding him, and suddenly he puts him under the water to drown him and get rid of him. The first time she sees him, Myra screams at him and runs to her son to pick him up and take him away from Peter. And Peter goes down to the gap to make sure it's closed, and there remain symbols engraved on the stone. When he puts his hand on it, he finds it moving. So he leaves her and goes out to his house again, and the doctor came to his house to check on his wife and son. As for the natural doctor, he is surprised that he is growing faster than the normal rate, and speculates that this is because of his good health, nothing more. And the plumber comes with the doctor to see the pipe broken in the hole. As for removing the rock from the hole, the plumber prefers to pour a pot into it in the hope that he will understand the reason for digging it or see to its end, and the doctor will be with them, and then the plumber will tell him that he will need more than one plumber to fix this hole and close it. The plumber will bring his wife with him. When she enters the house, it becomes clear to her that she is afraid of everything in this house. As for going down to see the hole, she says that this hole should have gone, and starts screaming alone because of her fear of the house, and flees outside the house, telling them that they must get out of it as soon as possible, and who will be too late. And Peter is still living in severe depression because of the nightmares he is seeing and what he saw in his son. He does not recognize or feel that he is his son in the first place, and after his wife and son sleep and walk home, he imagines that there is a child in the cot in front of her, and he saw a big man, and the child's face will be covered in blood and he will laugh. Its look is very creepy. As for Peter trying to escape from the front of the room, he falls on the ground, and he finds himself suddenly transferred to the hole to fall into it, but he catches himself before he falls and uses an iron to be able to move the rock from its place and close the hole again, and after that he is forced to go to the doctor again in his house to tell him what is happening to him and feel it, and he tells the doctor that sometimes he feels that entire days passed while he was asleep and did not feel it, and sometimes he was awake, but he did not feel what was around him, and he did not know a cure for his condition, and he has many days left. He doesn't sleep well, and he is not comfortable in his final home. The doctor tells him that the issue may be a psychological condition, nothing more, and he kept telling him to some extent that his house had not been inhabited for a long time and that he knew someone else. He lived in the house, and he was living alone after his wife left him and left him. At that time, he locked himself in his house until he escaped in his own way and decided to commit suicide. He killed himself on his kitchen door and his blood spread everywhere, and he asks him whether the words on the rock have been deciphered or not yet, because it could be carrying an important message, and the stone remains for a really famous artist. Peter decides to try to decipher the puzzle, and he goes to the shop where the plumber works 6 times, and he brings a book that talks about the language on the stone to read. So the crazy woman comes to him and tells him that the wife did not leave the house. She Wanted to run away, but she couldn't and didn't catch up, so he understands that his wife is at home with his son, but she tells him that she didn't mean it for his wife, and you leave it and go back to its place again, and preferably standing silent. Peter takes the book, and he goes and sits on the stone. But when he translates it all, he finds that the inscription on it is a sacred supplication to get rid of a demon named Mara. Suddenly, the ghost of a man appears in front of him, asking him about his wife, her health, and the health of her son. So, Peter is surprised that there is a bright ghost in front of him, and he talks to him and he calms down to his wife well. So the ghost replies and tells him that marriage will be difficult, especially if there is a new member added to the family, but is he sure that the child was his son? Because surely this child is not human, because he came out of an egg, and guesses that the child. This is not useful under any circumstances to leave the house, so Peter goes out to his wife, keeps a saucer for Nicholas, and asks his wife, does she see what happened? So normal that she deals with him because nothing happened, and that this strange child may be a demon, and he explains to her as a questioner that if someone came to her and told her that it was an egg and it hatched and he came out of it and grew up, she would believe him. Or would you call him crazy? Myra decides to leave Peter because he thinks their son is crazy, and she leaves the whole house for him. Before she goes out, he goes to her car to rape her, and Myra and her son get out of the house and go to the car to escape from Peter's madness, and you find the Arabic wasted while he is spitting on it and laughing. So you decide to run away from home, and Peter keeps chasing her and taunting her because he knows that she will come home again by entering the middle of the trees. And then you look at a vast place that has no end, because it is in a place far from any city, and she completes her escape and falls on her legs and gets hurt. But you can't give up because she's sure that Peter, if her son kills him, and he might kill her too, until she decides to let go of her son and tries to hit her husband with any rock around her and waits for him to come close to her and hits him hard on his head and takes her son to go back to hide again in her house. And the night has entered, and the world is dark, and his upbringing enters him, and he keeps calling out to his wife because he knows that she is hiding in the house, until he finds that the basement door is open, and he finds that the rock is moving from its place, and there is someone who is descending on it, so he understands that his wife came down to it in order to escape from him, and he goes down after her, and he keeps looking for her to take her from her, until he reaches the last place he is in, and he meets the devil that he used to see in his dreams all the time, and he stays he is in control of 6 in front of him, and oftentimes the old resident whose husband used to remember her left and ran away, and the first thing the devil sees him running after him, and it would be that Myra came back again on the rope and went out to her house, and the rock is closed because her husband does not know how to get out of it, and when he sees her doing this, he keeps tricking her into picking him up until you lock it up completely, and running away from the whole house, and I pass the time, and it will be Myra lives in a different house with her son, Nicholas, who is a year older. But he speaks little, and his traces remain very strange to his mother. As for drawing, he draws a terrifying house for his house and the hole under it. And it remains clear to Nicholas that he is really not human, and that it might really be a danger to Myra, as Peter was trying to understand her. And don't forget to subscribe to the Ladybug Synopsis channel.